From the History of Dodgeball, 7th edition. Dodgeball was invented by the Vikings near the end of the 8th century. They would often relieve boredom during voyages by competing against villagers who lived by the sea. Originally, dodgeballs were not thrown by human hands. Instead, they were fired out of cannons. In addition, the earliest dodgeballs were made out of iron rather than rubber. Although the game's original rules permitted both teams to throw the dodgeballs at competing players, only visiting teams took advantage of this, while home teams focused entirely on getting hit in the face. 2 centuries later, during the Crusades, the sport was popularized when Christian soldiers challenged Jews and Muslims to a dodgeball tournament with a prize that included an affidavit declaring the winning team's favored religion as the one true religion, and a $25 gift certificate to Pizza Mosque. The Christians defeated the Muslims in the final match with 4 team members still remaining in play. Since history is always rewritten by its victors, the Catholic Church bribed the editors of history books to depict the Crusades as being won through a series of violent battles rather than good sportsmanship. This period is also known for its innovative use of human hearts instead of iron balls, which were safer and more fun to play with. The tradition of picking teams began in 13th century England during the time of the Black Death. Naval captains who were too gangrenous to look good in their military uniforms were enlisted to lead dodgeball teams consisting of plague victims. The wizard kings of Europe felt an intramural dodgeball league would raise morale amongst the sick and keep them from devouring the brains of the healthy for the few hours each week that they spent running away from human hearts. Unlike the team captains of the modern age, the captains of the Middle Ages did not select players in the sequence of most skilled to the worst. Instead, they chose players based upon their degree of physical grotesqueness, which hurt the feelings of players who were more likely to arouse the opposite sex. A century later, the Aztecs introduced rubber balls to the game. Their national pastime, Tlacli, English translation, fun blood sacrifice for very hungry caterpillar, is commonly thought to be an early version of soccer where all the players had their arms and legs cut off prior to each match, but new studies have proved this incorrect. Tlacli was a form of dodgeball that was conceived independently from the dodgeball leagues that had come before it. The explanation for this has been a subject of much controversy among archaeologists. Physicist Noreve Stringer proposed the theory of morphic resonance as the explanation for the phenomenon. Just as it is easier to wake up later in the day rather than earlier in the morning due to energy building up in the Earth's morphic field as a result of the collective successes of early risers, Stringer believed the chances that other civilizations would develop dodgeball on their own significantly increased once the Vikings invented it. In 1520, the Aztecs taught Spanish conquistador Hernán Cortés to play Tlacli. Minutes later, he avenged his humiliating defeat by killing them all. After returning to Spain, he introduced the sport to the nation with much fanfare. Madrid would soon suffer from what is known as the Dodgeball Plague of 1528. It began with a typical game of dodgeball being played in the street. As people drove or walked by, they felt the urge to join one of the teams and abandoned their plans for the day. The game spread throughout the city, and within hours, every person in the city who wasn't a window-fearing recluse had joined in. The dodgeball plague lasted for 12 days, ending when the French invaded the country and released all of Spain's bulls into the crowd. By the time it was over, thousands had died from exhaustion, heart attack, goring, stroke, and getting hit in the head with a ball. To avoid dodgeball-related deaths in the future, King Charles I decreed that anyone who hit a competing player in the head with a ball would be eliminated from the game. The Mayflower set sail for America in 1620, carrying 102 passengers, 30 crew members, and 42 dodgeballs. Like the Vikings before them, the Pilgrims passed the time by playing dodgeball on deck. Since the supply of balls was meager and the players kept accidentally throwing them overboard, the Pilgrims instituted a new rule that rewarded players for catching the balls thrown by the opposite team, resulting in the elimination of the thrower. After 3 months at sea, the Mayflower landed on Plymouth Rock, bringing dodgeball to the New World. In 1775, war broke out between America and Great Britain. This would be known as the Revolutionary War, and it was a war unlike any other.